The television is already glowing before the sun is fully up. Blue light spills across the living room carpet. The curtains are still closed somewhere in the kitchen. Bacon crackles softly, and coffee begins to fill the house with its warm smell. The air feels different on a Saturday, lighter, slower, as if the whole week has finally loosened its grip. You sit cross-legged on the floor because the couch is too far away. The television set hums quietly. The picture flickers for a moment, and you can hear the tiny pop of the tube warming inside the cabinet. Outside, the street is still asleep. No lawn mowers, no traffic, just the distant sound of birds beginning their morning songs. The carpet feels cool against your legs. You pull a blanket around your shoulders. Maybe you are still wearing pajamas. Maybe one sock is missing. The house belongs to children for a little while, before the adults fully wake up and the chores begin. A station jingle drifts through the speaker. Bright music, cheerful voices, the promise that something fun is about to begin. In the 1970s, millions of American children spend their Saturday mornings in front of a television set, sharing the same few channels at the same time. But in this moment, you do not think about that. You only know that the room feels safe, the shadows are soft, the cereal bowl waits beside you, the clock does not seem important. Yet, the entire day stretches ahead like an empty road. You can almost hear the house breathing around you, and before the cartoons even begin, the feeling is already there. The feeling that this morning belongs only to you. If you grew up in this era, you remember this feeling. For the next little while, you and I are going to stay here. We are going to sit on this carpet again. We are going to hear the television warm up and watch the morning slowly unfold. The cereal will grow soft in the bowl. The sunlight will move across the floor, and the cartoons will carry us through a few quiet hours that seem much larger than they really are. Saturday morning does not feel important when it is happening, it feels small. Just another weekend, just another bowl of cereal, just another program beginning with bright music and familiar voices. But years later, these mornings remain. They wait somewhere deep inside us, tied to the smell of toast, the sound of footsteps in the kitchen, and the glow of a television before dawn. So we are going to follow the whole journey. From the first moments when the house is still asleep, to the excitement as the cartoons arrive, to the lazy feeling when the morning finally begins to fade, we will stay until the spell quietly breaks, and somewhere along the way, another question waits for us. Why does this feeling seem harder to find now? The cartoons themselves still exist, screens are everywhere, entertainment never seems to end, yet something gentle disappeared from these mornings, something about waiting, something about sharing the same moment with millions of other children, something about a few short hours that belonged entirely to the weekend. If you love returning to these small forgotten moments, consider subscribing to The Way We Were so you do not miss the next one. Because for now, the world outside can wait. The school week is over. The grown-up world is still asleep. The television glows in the corner, and Saturday morning is just beginning. The house wakes slowly. But you wake first. Your eyes open before the alarm clock ever has a chance. The room is still dark. The blanket is warm. For a moment, you lie still and listen. The furnace hums somewhere inside the walls. A floorboard creaks downstairs. The world feels quiet enough to hear your own breathing. Then you remember, it is Saturday. The feeling arrives all at once, not excitement exactly. Something softer, something that starts in your chest and moves through your whole body. The school week is gone. There is nowhere you need to be. And somewhere beyond your bedroom door, the television is waiting. You climb out of bed carefully. The hallway feels cold beneath your feet. You move quietly so you do not wake everyone else. The house belongs to shadows and small sounds. A clock ticks in the kitchen. The refrigerator hums. Outside the windows, the sky is beginning to turn from black to blue. Sometimes you are the first one awake. Sometimes a brother or sister is already sitting in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, guarding the television as if it might disappear. No one says very much. Words are not necessary yet. The morning itself is speaking. The television sets it silently in the corner. You walk toward it with a kind of respect, the large wooden cabinet, the glass screen, the knobs that click beneath your fingers. When the set comes alive, it does not happen instantly. There is a soft pop, a faint whistle. The picture slowly appears through the darkness. In many American homes during the 1970s, television sets needed several moments for their picture tubes to fully warm up. Those few seconds feel longer when you are a child. The station is not always broadcasting cartoons yet. Sometimes there is a test pattern. Sometimes music plays softly. Sometimes local programming fills the early minutes. But even waiting feels good. The waiting is part of the morning. The kitchen begins to wake. A parent turns on the coffee maker. A cabinet closes gently. You smell Toast before you see it. Bacon crackles. The scent drifts through the hallway and mixes with the warm smell of the television itself, a smell that belonged only to those old sets. The room grows brighter. The first sunlight reaches the curtains. Dust floats through the air like tiny pieces of gold. The carpet feels rough beneath your hands. Maybe you spread out a blanket. Maybe you build a small nest of pillows on the floor because the best seat is always the closest one. A cereal box appears. The sound of cereal pouring into a bowl feels almost as important as the cartoons themselves. The box is colorful. The prize hidden inside seems magical. Milk splashes against the bowl. The spoon clinks softly. Nobody is in a hurry. Saturday morning moves differently. The adults speak quietly. The radio stays off. The chores can wait. Even the house seems to understand that these few hours belong to someone else. Outside, the neighborhood remains still. Driveways are empty. Curtains stay closed. The streets look almost abandoned, yet inside thousands of homes. Children are awake at exactly this moment, sitting on carpets and waiting for the same familiar music to begin. You do not know them, you never meet them, but somehow you share the same morning. The station logo appears. Bright colors fill the screen. Music begins. Suddenly the room feels alive. Your cereal is forgotten for a moment. You lean forward without realizing it. Something special has started. If you grew up in this era, you remember this feeling, and then slowly, it changes. The room no longer feels sleepy now. The television fills the space with light and movement. Colors dance across the screen. Music rises and falls. Laughter comes from the speakers. The quiet house that seemed so still only a little while ago begins to feel alive. You settle deeper into your place on the floor. The blanket slips from your shoulders. The cereal spoon moves more slowly. Sometimes your legs are folded beneath you. Sometimes you lie on your stomach with your chin resting in your hands. The carpet leaves small patterns on your skin. The morning has arrived. A brother wanders in too. The room rubbing his eyes. A sister carries her own bowl from the kitchen. Nobody argues about where to sit yet. There is enough space. There is enough morning. The television becomes the center of the room, pulling everyone into the same circle. Outside, sunlight reaches the front porch. Inside, the curtains remain closed just enough to keep the room dim. The television glow still feels stronger than the sun. The screen reflects softly in the window glass. The rest of the house fades away. Commercials come and go. Bright voices promise breakfast cereals, toys, and games. The advertisements feel almost as colorful as the cartoons themselves. New action figures spin across the screen. Board games appear on living room tables. Sugary cereals sparkle under studio lights. By the late 1970s, Saturday morning advertising became one of the most important ways toy companies reach children. But as a child, you do not think about advertising. You only feel possibility. Every commercial seems to belong to your world. Every toy looks like it might appear under the Christmas tree. Every cereal promises a better Saturday morning than the one you are already having. From the kitchen comes the sound of dishes. Parents move quietly through the house. They drink coffee. They read the newspaper. Sometimes they stop in the doorway for a moment and watch the screen with you. Maybe they smile at a character they recognize. Maybe they simply enjoy seeing the room filled with children and soft morning light. The smell of breakfast still hangs in the air. Toast cools on a plate. Butter melts slowly. Somewhere a pan is being washed. The sounds drift in and out between the cartoons. The whole house feels connected, even when everyone is doing something different. The clock moves forward, yet nobody notices. That may be the strangest part of these mornings. Time seems to loosen its grip. There are no notifications, no endless choices, no need to decide what to watch among hundreds of options. The next program simply arrives when it arrives. You wait, and the waiting becomes part of the pleasure. One show ends. The station announcer speaks. New music begins. Different characters appear. The room changes with them. Some cartoons make you laugh. Others make you quiet. Some feel exciting. Others feel strangely comforting. The morning carries you along. The sunlight grows stronger now. It reaches across the carpet and slowly touches your feet. The house is fully awake. The neighborhood begins to stir outside. Cars start. Dogs bark. A lawn mower starts somewhere down the street. But inside the living room, the spell still holds. For a little longer, the world remains small enough to fit inside one television screen. If you grew up in this era, you remember this feeling, and then slowly, it changes. The morning is fully awake now. The sun has climbed higher, but you hardly notice. The cereal bowl sits empty beside you. The milk has left a white ring at the bottom. The blanket is somewhere behind you. The living room no longer feels cold. It feels lived in. This is the part people remember. Not the first moments of waking. Not the quiet waiting. This is when Saturday morning becomes something larger than television. The cartoons are no longer simply programs, they become the background music of childhood itself. The room is full now. Brothers and sisters move in and out. Someone laughs at a joke before anyone else understands it. Someone reaches for another bowl of cereal. A parent walks through carrying laundry or a cup of coffee. The dog stretches on the floor nearby, perfectly content to sleep through the entire morning. The television keeps talking. Bright colors fill the room. Heroes run. Villains shout. Music rises and falls. The sound becomes part of the house itself. Even people who are not watching know exactly where they are simply by hearing those familiar voices from another room. During the 1970s, many networks grouped children's programming together into long Saturday morning blocks that lasted several hours. Those hours feel endless. You never look at the clock because there is no reason to. The morning seems to stretch forever. Childhood teaches you that some moments have no edges. Saturday morning is one of them. The sunlight now reaches across the entire room. Dust floats through the warm beams. The colors on the screen seem softer. Outside, bicycles begin rolling down sidewalks. Garage doors open. Neighbors appear in their yards. Yet somehow you remain inside this small world for a little longer. The commercials become familiar. You recognize the jingles before they begin. You know which toy you want. You know which cereal seems impossible to convince your parents to buy. The advertisements become little landmarks that help measure the morning. One commercial means there is still plenty of time. Another means noon is getting closer. Without realizing it, you learn the shape of the morning. The kitchen grows quieter now. Breakfast dishes are finished. Coffee cups sit empty. The newspaper rests folded on the table. The adults have entered their day, but you are still living inside yours. Sometimes a parent sits down beside you, only for a few minutes. Maybe they smile at something on the screen. Maybe they remember cartoons from their own childhood. Maybe they simply enjoy the stillness of watching their children completely absorbed by something harmless and joyful. Years later, this small memory often remains. Not the exact cartoon, not the plot, just the feeling of another person sitting beside you while sunlight filled the room. You begin to notice small things: the warmth of the carpet, the sound of the air conditioner turning on, the smell of dust warmed by sunlight, the gentle hum inside the television cabinet. These details settle quietly into memory without asking permission. Childhood does this. It stores ordinary moments as treasures. The neighborhood outside becomes brighter and louder. Friends may soon knock at the door. Baseball gloves wait by the garage. Bicycles lean against fences. The rest of Saturday is waiting patiently, but not yet. For now, the cartoons still hold the room together. Nobody says it aloud, but everyone understands these hours are special. They arrive once each week. They cannot be moved. They cannot be replayed. If you miss them, they are simply gone until next Saturday. Perhaps that is why they feel so precious. You cannot pause them. You cannot record them. You cannot watch them whenever you choose. You must be here. You must wake early. You must sit on the floor while the rest of the world slowly catches up, and because of that, the morning feels earned. If you grew up in this era, you remember this feeling. The television glows, the sun climbs higher, the house breathes around you, and for a little while longer, childhood feels endless, and then slowly it changes. The light in the room is different now. The soft blue glow that once filled the living room has faded beneath the sun. The curtains no longer hide the morning. Bright daylight stretches across the carpet, and the television seems smaller somehow, as if it knows its time is nearly over. The cereal boxes have been put away, empty bowls sit in the sink. The smell of breakfast has disappeared, replaced by open windows and fresh air. Somewhere outside, a lawn mower hums steadily, a screen door closes, a bicycle rattles down the sidewalk. Saturday is beginning. The cartoons continue, but something has changed. The excitement settles into quiet comfort. You lean back against the couch now. Maybe you stretch your legs. Maybe you glance toward the window between scenes. The world outside slowly calls your name. The house grows busier. Parents move from room to room. Beds are made. Laundry begins to tumble. A vacuum cleaner starts somewhere down the hallway. Someone asks what you want for lunch. Someone reminds you that the yard needs attention. The spell has not broken yet, but you can feel it loosening. Many television stations gradually shifted away from children's programming around late morning, replacing cartoons with other shows meant for a wider audience. You do not know the schedules. You simply feel the change. The commercials seem different now. The station voices sound quieter. The programs lose some of their early magic. You realize that the best part of the morning may already have happened, and strangely, that is part of what makes it beautiful. Nothing lasts long enough to become ordinary. A friend may knock at the door. A baseball glove waits near the back steps. A bicycle stands in the driveway. The neighborhood has fully awakened now. Children appear outside carrying balls, kites, and skateboards. Somewhere nearby, another television is turning off. You stand up for the first time in hours. The carpet leaves marks on your elbows. Your legs feel stiff. The room looks larger when you are no longer sitting on the floor. Sunlight fills every corner. The television continues talking behind you, but you no longer face it the same way. The morning is slipping away. You wander into the kitchen. The refrigerator door opens. A glass of cold milk appears in your hand. The sounds from the television drift softly from another room, growing less important with each passing minute. Parents ask about plans. Friends wait outside. The day begins to unfold. Yet before you leave, you often turn back one last time. You look toward the screen. The familiar characters are still there. The music still plays, but the feeling has changed. The magic belongs to the early hours, the quiet house, the dark room, the first bowl of cereal. Those moments cannot stay, and perhaps they are never meant to, because every Saturday teaches the same gentle lesson. Morning arrives, morning shines, morning fades. Then the larger world opens its doors again. If you grew up in this era, you remember this feeling. The television clicks off. The room becomes silent. Outside, the neighborhood is waiting. The whole afternoon stretches ahead, and somewhere deep inside, without realizing it, you already begin waiting for next Saturday. Years pass quietly. Not all at once, not with a single change or a final Saturday morning. The feeling simply begins to drift away, little by little, like sunlight leaving the carpet at the end of the day. The television changes first. More channels arrive. Cable spreads from neighborhood to neighborhood. Cartoons no longer belong to a single morning. Each week, they appear in the afternoon, in the evening, and eventually all day long. The waiting disappears. And when something is always available, it begins to feel different. The old rhythm slowly fades. Children no longer wake early because they have to. The television is always there. The programs can be recorded. Later, they can be replayed. Eventually, they can be watched at any moment with the touch of a button. Convenience enters the room, but something small quietly leaves. The living room changes too. Families spread into different rooms. More televisions appear in more homes. One child watches here, another watches somewhere else. The shared carpet in front of a single glowing screen becomes less common. By the 1980s, dedicated cable channels for children's programming were beginning to reshape how young audiences watch television. The week itself begins to move faster. Parents become busier. Schedules grow fuller. Weekend mornings fill with errands, sports, activities, and obligations. The empty hours that once stretched across Saturday become harder to find. Nobody decides to end these mornings. They simply become smaller. The world offers more choices, more entertainment, more ways to fill every quiet space. Yet those old Saturday mornings had very few choices at all. A handful of channels, a few precious hours, one shared experience. Perhaps that limitation was part of the gift, because millions of children sat down at nearly the same time, heard the same music, watched the same characters, and felt the same excitement as the sun slowly rose outside. That kind of waiting has become rare. That kind of togetherness has become quieter. If you grew up in this era, you remember this feeling. The cartoons did not disappear completely. The televisions did not go dark, but the small world that existed between dawn and noon on a Saturday morning slowly folded itself away, leaving behind only the warmth of memory. Maybe you remember a morning like this, not every detail, not every cartoon. The names may fade, the stories may disappear, but the feeling remains somewhere inside you, waiting for a quiet moment to return. Perhaps it comes back when you smell toast early in the morning. Perhaps it returns when sunlight falls across a carpet. Maybe it arrives unexpectedly when you hear the soft hum of an old television or see a cereal box that has somehow survived the years. Memory rarely gives us the whole picture. Instead, it hands us small pieces: the sound of a spoon against a bowl, the feeling of cold feet on a hallway floor, the weight of a blanket around your shoulders, the distant sound of your parents talking in the kitchen while the television glows in another room. Maybe you shared these mornings with brothers and sisters. Maybe you watched alone while the house slowly woke around you. Maybe you remember sitting beside someone who is no longer here, a parent drinking coffee, a grandparent smiling from the doorway, a family dog sleeping nearby. Sometimes the people become the memory. Sometimes the room becomes the memory. And sometimes it is simply the feeling of being young enough to believe that a Saturday morning could last forever. If you grew up in this era, you remember this feeling. But even if your childhood looked different, perhaps you recognize something familiar here. A small part of life that belonged entirely to you. A quiet ritual. A few precious hours that arrived every week and asked nothing from you except that you be present. The world moves quickly now. Morning often begins with alarms, messages, schedules, and screens that never truly sleep. Yet somewhere inside us, that child still sits cross-legged on the carpet, waiting for the television to warm up and for the day to begin. And perhaps that child never really leaves. Some feelings do not last, but they are never really gone. Somewhere in a quiet living room filled with early sunlight, the television is still warming up, the cereal is still growing soft in the bowl, the kitchen still smells like coffee and toast, the house is still asleep, and a child is sitting cross-legged on the carpet, waiting for the cartoons to begin, and maybe that child is still a small part of us. The world changes, the mornings become busier, the screens become brighter, the choices become endless, yet certain feelings remain exactly where we left them, waiting patiently for us to return. If this morning brought back a memory, leave a comment and share the part you remember most, and if you would like to revisit more forgotten moments like this, subscribe to The Way We Were and join me for the next journey. Some feelings do not last, but they are never really gone, so before you go, think about this. When you remember your own Saturday mornings, what is the very first thing that comes back? The sound, the smell, the room, or the person sitting beside you?